When Marcus Hale boarded Flight 2847 clutching his daughter's hand and his life savings, he had no idea that saving a stranger's life at 37,000 feet would unlock the miracle his dying child desperately needed. What happened next defied all odds and proved that sometimes the people we rescue become our salvation. Welcome to a story that will restore your faith in destiny. I'm sharing this incredible true account of how one father's courage in the sky changed everything. Stay with me until the very end. You won't believe how this unfolds. And please comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels across the world. The harsh fluorescent lights of Terminal C cast an unforgiving glow across Marcus Hale's weathered face as he knelt before his 8-year-old daughter, adjusting the small oxygen cannula beneath her nose with the practiced gentleness of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. Lily's pale lips curved into a brave smile that broke his heart anew, the same smile her mother had worn during those final days when courage was all they had left. "Ready for our adventure, sweetheart?" Marcus whispered, his calloused paramedic hands trembling slightly as he smoothed her dark hair. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent 15 years saving lives, yet he couldn't save the one that mattered most. "Will the doctors in New York really fix my heart, Daddy?" Lily's voice carried that particular breathless quality that had become increasingly prominent over the past months. Each word a reminder of time slipping away like sand through his fingers. Marcus swallowed hard, forcing confidence into his voice. "They're going to try their absolute best, baby girl. That's all we can ask for." But as they walked toward Gate 17, Marcus felt the weight of the envelope in his jacket pocket, $15,000 in cash, representing every penny from his late wife's life insurance, his savings account, and the sale of Sarah's wedding ring. It was everything he owned in the world, and it wasn't nearly enough. Not for the $180,000 surgery that Dr. Martinez had quoted, not for the experimental procedure that represented Lily's only chance at seeing her 9th birthday. The boarding announcement crackled over the intercom, and Marcus lifted Lily into his arms, feeling how light she'd become, how fragile. Other passengers rushed past them with their mundane concerns, missed meetings, vacation delays, connecting flights. None of them carried the crushing weight of a parent watching their child fade away day by agonizing day. Flight 22847 to New York LaGuardia now boarding all passengers. As they approached the gate, Marcus caught sight of the first-class passengers already settling into their spacious seats. Through the small window, he glimpsed a woman in an expensive navy suit, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant chignon, her fingers dancing across a tablet screen, with the efficiency of someone accustomed to making million-dollar decisions before breakfast. She looked untouchable, existing in a world so far removed from his reality that they might as well have been different species. Victoria Sterling barely glanced up as the economy passengers filed past her seat. She was deep in negotiations for a hospital acquisition in Chicago, her voice low and measured as she spoke into her Bluetooth earpiece. "Tell them we'll go to 8.5, but that's final. If they can't accept those terms, we'll look elsewhere." She ended the call and leaned back in her leather seat, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. Sterling Healthcare Corporation had grown from a single clinic to a nationwide network under her leadership, built on the foundation of her relentless drive and an intimate understanding of both medicine and loss. She'd learned long ago that sentiment was a luxury she couldn't afford in business yet. Lately, she'd been haunted by dreams of a hospital room that smelled of disinfectant and false hope. In seat 23C, Marcus was helping Lily buckle her seatbelt when she suddenly gripped his arm. "Daddy, I can't breathe very well." His trained eyes immediately assessed her condition. Pale skin with a slight blue tinge around her lips, rapid, shallow breathing, the telltale signs of her condition worsening. He reached for the small, portable oxygen concentrator he'd managed to borrow from his ambulance company, praying it would be enough for the 4-hour flight. "Just relax, sweetheart. Remember what we practiced, in through your nose, nice and slow." Lily nodded, her small chest rising and falling with deliberate effort. The passenger beside them, an elderly businessman, glanced over with concern but said nothing. The unspoken etiquette of air travel maintaining the illusion of privacy in their cramped quarters. As the plane pushed back from the gate, Marcus closed his eyes and allowed himself to remember the conversation that had led them here. Dr. Martinez's office with its cheerful pediatric decorations that seemed to mock the gravity of their situation. "Her heart is failing faster than we anticipated," the cardiologist had said, his kind eyes filled with regret. "The valve replacement can't wait much longer. I've been in contact with Dr. Chen at Mount Sinai. She's pioneered a new technique that could give Lily a normal life, but it's not covered by insurance." Marcus had finished, the familiar weight of medical debt settling on his shoulders like a lead blanket. "There are payment plans, assistance programs. Doctor, I've already tried everything. My wife and I, we went through this dance before. The bureaucracy, the forms, the appeals that lead nowhere, while the patient gets sicker." Marcus had looked through the window at Lily in the waiting room, coloring in a book with fierce concentration. "How long does she have without the surgery?" Dr. Martinez had been quiet for a long moment. "Maybe 6 months. Possibly less." Now, as Flight 22847 climbed toward its cruising altitude, Marcus gripped Lily's hand and whispered a prayer to whatever force might be listening. He'd never been particularly religious. His faith had been tested too severely by Sarah's cancer battle, but desperation had a way of making believers out of skeptics. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Rodriguez. We've reached our cruising altitude of 37,000 feet. Flight attendants, you're now free to begin service." The familiar routine of air travel began around them, overhead, bins clicking open, laptops emerging, the soft ding of call buttons as passengers settled in for the long haul to New York. Marcus had brought coloring books and games for Lily, anything to distract her from the discomfort of flying with a compromised cardiovascular system. "Can you tell me about Mommy's favorite place again?" Lily asked, her small hand finding his. Marcus smiled, settling into the familiar comfort of Sarah's memory. "Central Park in the fall. She used to say the leaves looked like pieces of sunshine that fell from heaven." He paused, remembering how Sarah's eyes would light up when she talked about their brief honeymoon in New York, when the future had stretched before them like an endless ribbon of possibility. "When I get better, can we go see the leaves?" "Absolutely, baby girl. We'll collect the prettiest ones and press them in a book just like Mommy used to do." Lily smiled and returned to her coloring book, carefully shading in a heart art with red crayon. Marcus watched her work, marveling at her resilience, her unwavering belief that everything would turn out fine. Children possessed an innate optimism that adults lost somewhere along the way, worn down by reality's relentless assault on hope. 3 hours into the flight, as the cabin lights dimmed and most passengers dozed or lost themselves in entertainment, Marcus noticed the woman in first class standing abruptly. Victoria Sterling had been reviewing quarterly reports when a sudden crushing pain had shot through her chest, radiating down her left arm with the unmistakable signature of cardiac distress. She gripped the back of her seat, her breath coming in short gasps as the documents scattered across the floor. Her first thought was absurdly practical. She had a board meeting in the morning, a merger that depended on her presence. Her second thought was of a hospital room from 20 years ago and a boy who would never grow up to disappoint or surprise her. "Ma'am, are you all right?" The flight attendant approached with the practiced concern of someone trained to handle in-flight emergencies, but Victoria could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "I think I'm having—" Victoria's words were cut short as the pain intensified, and she collapsed forward, her body crumpling into the aisle with the graceless finality of a marionette whose strings had been severed. The first scream came from the passenger behind her. Then another. Within seconds, the cabin erupted into controlled chaos as flight attendants rushed forward and the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "We have a medical emergency. If there are any medical professionals on board, please identify yourselves immediately." Marcus felt Lily's hand tighten in his as the commotion reached their section. His paramedic instincts kicked in before his conscious mind could object, 15 years of emergency response overriding his exhaustion and worry. "Stay right here, sweetheart. Daddy has to help someone." "But what if you don't come back?" Lily's eyes were wide with fear, her small face pale against the blue airline blanket. Marcus cupped her face gently. "I will always come back to you, always. Mrs. Patterson here will watch you, won't you?" The elderly woman across the aisle nodded immediately. "Of course, dear. You go help." Marcus made his way forward through the narrow aisle, his emergency training automatically cataloging details: the woman's position, her breathing pattern, the color of her skin. She was unconscious, but still breathing, her expensive jewelry catching the overhead lights as her chest rose and fell in an irregular rhythm. "I'm a paramedic," he announced to the flight attendant. "How long has she been down?" "Maybe 2 minutes. She just collapsed suddenly." Marcus knelt beside Victoria, his hands moving with practiced efficiency as he checked her pulse and airways. Her heart rate was rapid and irregular, her skin clammy with perspiration. Classic signs of cardiac event. But something felt different. This wasn't the typical presentation he'd seen hundreds of times in the back of ambulances. "Ma'am, can you hear me? I'm Marcus. I'm a paramedic. You're on flight 2847 and you've had some kind of episode." Victoria's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "My chest. I can't. My son." "Try to stay calm. Your heart is having some irregularities, but you're breathing well. That's good." Marcus placed his hand gently on her shoulder, noting the thin surgical scar visible at her neckline. "Have you had heart surgery before?" "Cancer. Years ago. They said the treatment might affect." Victoria's voice faded as another wave of pain crossed her features. Marcus felt a chill of recognition. Sarah had undergone similar treatments, and the oncologists had warned them about potential cardiac complications from chemotherapy. He'd seen it in other patients too, the cruel irony of surviving cancer only to face heart problems years later. "I need to get her stabilized," Marcus told the flight attendant. "Do you have oxygen on board aspirin?" As he worked to stabilize Victoria, Marcus noticed details that seemed strangely familiar. The way she gripped his hand during the worst of the pain, the small crescent-shaped scar on her wrist that looked identical to one Sarah had carried. But it was when Victoria looked directly at him, her gray eyes focusing with sudden clarity, that he felt the strangest sensation of recognition. "You're going to be fine," he assured her, checking her pulse again. "The irregularity is stabilizing. Just keep breathing slowly." Victoria studied his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You have kind eyes," she whispered, "like someone I once knew. Just rest. We'll be landing soon." But Victoria's gaze shifted past him toward the economy section, where Lily sat with her oxygen cannula and worried expression. Something flickered in Victoria's eyes, surprise perhaps, or recognition. "Is that your daughter?" Marcus turned to see Lily straining against her seatbelt, trying to see what was happening. The sight of her pale face and the medical equipment made his chest tight with familiar anxiety. "Yes. She's not well. We're flying to New York for treatment." Victoria was quiet for a moment, her breathing slowly returning to normal as Marcus's intervention took effect. "What's wrong with her?" "Heart valve defect. She needs surgery that we can't afford." The words came out before Marcus could stop them. Raw honesty born from exhaustion and stress. Something shifted in Victoria's expression, a flicker of pain that had nothing to do with her cardiac episode. "How old is she?" 8. Victoria closed her eyes, and Marcus saw tears slip down her cheeks. "I had a son who was 8 once, before the cancer took him." The confession hung in the recycled air between them, heavy with implications Marcus couldn't yet understand. He continued monitoring her vital signs, but part of his mind was cataloging coincidences that felt too significant to be random: her surgical scars, her reaction to Lily, the way she'd mentioned cancer and cardiac complications. "What was his name?" Marcus found himself asking. "David. David Sterling." Victoria's voice broke on the name. "He loved airplanes, always wanted to be a pilot when he grew up." As Victoria's condition continued to stabilize, Marcus felt the familiar satisfaction of a life saved, a crisis averted. But something about this encounter felt different, charged with a significance he couldn't name. When Victoria gripped his hand one final time, before the flight attendants helped her back to her seat, her eyes held a weight of purpose that spoke to promises yet to be made. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved my life tonight." "Just doing what I was trained to do." But as Marcus made his way back to Lily, he caught Victoria's eyes one more time, and in that moment he saw something that made his breath catch, a look of someone who had just realized that fate had placed exactly the right person in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Lily threw her arms around him as he settled back into his seat, her relief palpable. "You came back. I promised I would." Marcus held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her fragile heartbeat against his chest. "I'll always come back to you." As Flight 22847 began its descent toward LaGuardia, Marcus stared out the small window at the lights of New York spreading below them like fallen stars. He had no way of knowing that the woman whose life he'd just saved held the power to save Lily's life in return. He couldn't know that Victoria Sterling had spent the remainder of the flight making phone calls that would change everything, or that the tears on her cheeks weren't just from pain, but from the overwhelming realization that sometimes the universe offered second chances in the most unexpected ways. All Marcus knew was that they had made it to New York, and tomorrow would bring them one step closer to either a miracle or heartbreak. He tightened his arms around Lily as the plane touched down, carrying them into an uncertain future where hope and desperation walked hand in hand, and where the kindness of strangers might prove to be the very salvation they desperately needed. The wheels of Flight 22847 kissed the runway at LaGuardia with a gentle bump that barely disturbed the sleeping passengers, but Marcus felt it like a seismic shift in his universe. They had arrived in the city of possibilities, carrying with them nothing but hope, determination, and $15,000 that wouldn't be nearly enough. What he didn't know was that in first class, Victoria Sterling was already making the phone calls that would transform their impossible dream into an inevitable reality. As they prepared to disembark, Marcus caught one last glimpse of the woman he'd helped, now walking steadily with the flight attendant's assistance. For just a moment, their eyes met across the cabin divide, and Victoria offered him a small smile that held promises neither of them could yet understand. "Ready, sweetheart?" Marcus asked Lily as they gathered their simple belongings. "Ready, Daddy. Let's go save my heart." The humid New York air hit them like a wall as they emerged from LaGuardia Airport, carrying with it the mingled scents of exhaust fumes, hot asphalt, and the indefinable energy of 8 million dreams colliding in concrete canyons. Marcus hefted their single duffel bag over his shoulder while keeping his other arm protectively around Lily, whose breathing had grown more labored during the descent. The portable oxygen concentrator wheezed quietly beside them, a mechanical reminder that time was not their ally. "Look, Daddy!" Lily pointed toward the Manhattan skyline, where the evening sun painted the glass towers in shades of amber and gold. "It looks like a fairy tale city." Marcus smiled despite the knot of anxiety in his stomach. "Your mommy always said New York was magical. She said if you believed hard enough, anything could happen here." The taxi ride into Manhattan cost $47 money. Marcus calculated automatically, his mind constantly tallying their dwindling resources. The driver, a weathered man with kind eyes, noticed Lily's medical equipment in the rearview mirror and refused to take the tip Marcus offered. "My daughter, she was sick once too," the driver said in accented English. "You keep that money. You need it more than me." As they pulled away from the curb, Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. Kindness from strangers had become both a blessing and a reminder of how desperate their situation truly was. Their hotel room on the Upper West Side was small, but clean, with a view of a brick wall and a sliver of sky. Marcus had booked it primarily for its proximity to Mount Sinai Hospital and its advertised rate of $69 per night. Every expense had been calculated and recalculated, leaving no room for error or unexpected costs. "Can we order room service?" Lily asked, bouncing slightly on the bed, before a coughing fit reminded her of her limitations. "Let's see what's around here first, sweetheart. Maybe we can find a nice deli just like in the movies." They ventured out into the neighborhood as the sun began to set, painting the narrow streets in long shadows. Marcus found a small corner deli where the owner, an elderly Jewish man named Sol, took one look at Lily's pale complexion and insisted on adding extra pickles to her sandwich at no charge. "You remind me of my granddaughter," Sol told Lily as he carefully wrapped their order. "She loves pickles too. What brings you to our neighborhood? Daddy's going to find doctors to fix my heart," Lily replied with the matter-of-fact honesty of childhood. Sol's expression softened, and when Marcus reached for his wallet, the old man waved him away. "On the house tonight. Sometimes the city takes care of its own." Back in their hotel room as Lily colored while eating her sandwich, Marcus spread out the medical paperwork Dr. Martinez had provided. The appointment with Dr. Chen wasn't until tomorrow afternoon, but he found himself reading and rereading the clinical notes as if familiarity might somehow change the impossible numbers. "Daddy, why do you look so worried all the time?" Marcus glanced up to find Lily watching him with Sarah's perceptive eyes. "I just want to make sure everything goes perfectly tomorrow." "It will. Mommy told me in a dream that she's watching over us." The casual mention of Sarah made Marcus's chest tighten. Lily spoke of her mother often, as if death were merely a temporary separation rather than a permanent goodbye. Sometimes Marcus envied his daughter's ability to find comfort in memories that only brought him pain. "What did Mommy say in your dream?" "She said that sometimes angels look like regular people, and we have to be ready to recognize them." Lily returned to her coloring, adding careful details to a picture of a heart surrounded by flowers. "She said help comes from unexpected places." That night, as Lily slept with the steady rhythm of the oxygen concentrator, providing background music to her dreams, Marcus stood at their narrow window and watched the city below. Somewhere out there, millions of people were living their lives, some celebrating, some struggling, some facing their own impossible choices. He wondered how many other parents stood at similar windows, bargaining with fate for just a little more time. Meanwhile, across town in a penthouse suite overlooking Central Park, Victoria, Sterling sat in her study, unable to concentrate on the merger documents spread across her mahogany desk. Every few minutes, she found herself touching the spot on her chest, where the pain had struck during the flight. But it wasn't physical discomfort that distracted her. It was the memory of Marcus's gentle hands and worried eyes, and the sight of his pale daughter watching from economy class. She'd built Sterling Healthcare Corporation from nothing, driven by the memory of her son David and the inadequate care he'd received during his final months. Every hospital acquisition, every policy change, every innovation she'd pushed through had been motivated by the promise she'd made at his bedside that other parents wouldn't have to watch their children suffer as he had suffered. Yet here she was, 20 years later, having encountered a father and daughter who embodied everything she'd sworn to prevent. The irony was almost cruel in its perfection. Victoria picked up her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Dr. Chen, it's Victoria Sterling. I apologize for calling so late. Yes, I know it's been months since we've spoken. I need a favor, and it's urgent." The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, as if New York itself were reflecting Marcus's mood. Lily had slept poorly, her breathing becoming increasingly labored during the night, and Marcus had found himself checking her pulse every few hours, his paramedic training warring with his paternal anxiety. They took the subway to Mount Sinai, Lily, clutching his hand as they navigated the underground maze of tunnels and stairs. The other passengers gave them a wide berth, whether out of courtesy for Lily's obvious medical needs or simple New York indifference, Marcus couldn't tell. The pediatric cardiology wing of Mount Sinai was everything Marcus had hoped for and feared. State-of-the-art equipment housed in cheerfully decorated rooms designed to mask the gravity of childhood illness. Lily was immediately enchanted by the aquarium in the waiting room, pressing her nose against the glass to watch the tropical fish swimming in endless circles. "Mr. Hale." A nurse with a gentle smile and efficient manner approached them. "Dr. Chen will see you now." Dr. Chen was younger than Marcus had expected, with precise movements and an air of controlled competence that inspired both confidence and intimidation. She reviewed Lily's case files while Lily sat on the examination table, swinging her legs and studying the medical equipment with curious eyes. "The valve damage is extensive," Dr. Chen said without preamble, her honesty as sharp as a scalpel. "Traditional approaches won't be sufficient. We're looking at a complete valve replacement using a new biomechanical hybrid technique I've been developing." "What are the success rates?" Marcus asked, though he dreaded the answer almost as much as he needed to hear it. 87% full recovery assuming no complications. Without surgery." She paused, glancing at Lily, who was now examining a stethoscope with intense concentration. 6 months, possibly less. The numbers hung in the air between them like a death sentence wrapped in statistical precision. Marcus had known, of course, Dr. Martinez had prepared him for this conversation, but hearing it again made his knees weak with desperation. "And the cost? $180,000. I understand this represents a significant financial burden, but I want you to know that we do offer payment plans, and there are occasionally grant opportunities." "Dr. Chen." A nurse appeared in the doorway, her expression apologetic but urgent. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a call for you." The caller said it was regarding the Hale case specifically. Dr. Chen frowned, excusing herself to take the call in the corridor. Through the slightly open door, Marcus could hear fragments of conversation words, like full coverage and private funding, that made no sense in the context of their situation. "Daddy, the lady doctor looks surprised," Lily observed, having apparently been listening as well. When Dr. Chen returned, her expression had transformed from professional sympathy to carefully controlled astonishment. "Mr. Hale, I have some unexpected news. It appears that a private benefactor has contacted the hospital regarding Lily's case. They've agreed to cover all surgical costs and related expenses." Marcus felt the world tilt sideways. I'm sorry, what? A private donor has established a fund specifically for Lily's treatment. All costs will be covered: surgery, hospital stay, follow-up care, everything. Dr. Chen's voice carried the wonder of someone who had witnessed medical miracles but still found them surprising. But who? Why would someone? Marcus struggled to process the information, his mind cycling through possibilities and finding none that made sense. The donor wishes to remain anonymous for now, but they were quite specific that this covered all expenses related to Lily's care. Mr. Hale, your daughter can have the surgery. Lily looked between the adults, sensing the gravity of the moment, without fully understanding its implications. Does this mean the doctors can fix my heart now? Marcus knelt beside the examination table, taking her small hands in his. Yes, sweetheart. Someone very kind has made it possible for you to have the surgery. Like an angel in disguise. Something like that. Dr. Chen scheduled the surgery for the following week, explaining that she wanted to run additional tests and ensure Lily was as stable as possible before the procedure. As they left the hospital, Marcus felt as though he were walking in someone else's dream. The impossible had somehow come possible, but the why of it eluded him completely. They spent the afternoon in Central Park, where Lily fed ducks with bread Saul had insisted they take from the deli. The autumn leaves were just beginning to turn, painting the trees, in the early stages of their annual transformation. Marcus watched his daughter laugh as the ducks squabbled over breadcrumbs, and for the first time in months, he allowed himself to believe she might see another spring. Daddy, look. Lily pointed across the pond to where a woman sat alone on a bench, her silver hair catching the afternoon sunlight. Isn't that the lady from the airplane? Marcus followed her gaze and felt his breath catch. Victoria Sterling sat perfectly still, watching them with an expression he couldn't read. Even at a distance, there was something deliberate about her presence, as if she had sought them out rather than simply happened upon them. Stay right here by the pond, Marcus told Lily. I'm going to go talk to that lady. As he approached Victoria's bench, she looked up with eyes that held too much knowledge and not enough surprise. Hello, Marcus. How are you feeling about Dr. Chen? The casual mention of the doctor's name confirmed what Marcus had already begun to suspect. It was you. You're the anonymous donor. Victoria gestured to the space beside her on the bench. Please sit down. We need to talk. Marcus remained standing, his mind reeling with questions and a growing sense of unease. Why would you pay for Lily's surgery? You don't even know us. But I do know you. Perhaps not your name or your story, but I know the weight you carry. I know what it's like to watch your child fade away while you fight a system that treats desperation as a pre-existing condition. Victoria's voice carried a weariness that spoke of battles fought and lost. 20 years ago, I sat where you're sitting now. Your son, David. Leukemia. 8 years old, just like Lily. For 6 months, I threw everything I had at his illness. The best doctors, experimental treatments so expensive, they nearly bankrupted me even though I was already successful. Victoria's hands clenched in her lap. Money couldn't save him, but it bought him time. Time to tell me he loved me one more time. Time for one last Christmas morning. Time for things that are priceless but cost everything. Marcus sank onto the bench beside her, the weight of her story settling over him like a shroud. I'm sorry, I can't imagine. The worst part wasn't losing him. The worst part was the mother I met in the hospital cafeteria whose son had the same disease, the same treatment options, but whose insurance wouldn't cover the experimental therapy. I watched her boy die 2 weeks before David did, knowing that money, just money, was the only difference between them. Across the pond, Lily had discovered a family of geese and was attempting to conduct a serious conversation with the largest one her animated gestures, making both her oxygen tubes and her determination visible. That's when I decided to build Sterling Healthcare, Victoria continued. Every hospital we acquire, every policy we change, every innovation we fund, it's all in service of making sure no parent faces what that mother faced. What I faced. What you're facing. But Lily's surgery is covered now. Why are you telling me this? Victoria turned to look at him directly, and Marcus saw something in her eyes that made his chest tighten, a recognition that went deeper than their brief encounter on the airplane. Because there's something else you need to know. Something about your wife. The mention of Sarah made Marcus's world suddenly feel unsteady. What about Sarah? 20 years ago, during David's final weeks, there was a nurse in the pediatric oncology ward. She worked the night shift, and she had this way of making the hardest hours bearable. She would sit with the children who couldn't sleep, tell them stories, hold their hands, when the treatments became too frightening. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Sarah worked nights in pediatric oncology before she became a school nurse. David talked about her constantly. Nurse Sarah, he called her. She had this little ritual whenever a child was scared before a procedure. She would draw a tiny heart on their hand with a washable marker. She told them it was her heart keeping them company so they wouldn't be alone. The memory hit Marcus like a physical blow. Sarah had continued that ritual throughout her career, drawing little hearts on the hands of frightened children, whether in the hospital or at school. Even during her own cancer treatment, she'd drawn hearts on her fellow patients' hands, sharing courage she didn't feel. The night before David died, Sarah stayed with him for hours. I'd fallen asleep in the chair beside his bed, and when I woke up, she was holding his hand, humming some old lullaby my grandmother used to sing. He wasn't conscious anymore, but she stayed anyway. Victoria's voice broke slightly. When she saw I was awake, she said something I've never forgotten. Every child deserves to be loved in their final moments, but more than that, every child deserves to be fought for while they still have moments left. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face, the image of Sarah comforting a dying child, both heartbreaking and perfectly essentially her. She never told me about David specifically, but she used to talk about the night shift kids. She said they taught her that hope wasn't about outcomes, it was about presence. She made me a promise that night, Victoria said softly. She made me swear that if David didn't make it, I wouldn't let his death be meaningless. She said that every child we could save would carry a piece of him forward, and that love doesn't end with death, it multiplies. Victoria reached into her purse and withdrew a small faded photograph. It showed a young boy with bright eyes and a mischievous smile, his bald head covered by a cap decorated with airplanes. But what made Marcus's breath catch was the small heart drawn in marker on the back of the boy's hand, visible where he was waving at the camera. This was taken 2 days before he died. Sarah drew that heart. Victoria's thumb traced the edge of the photograph with the tenderness of a prayer. For 20 years, I've been trying to fulfill the promise I made to her. When I saw you on that plane, saw your daughter with her oxygen tubes and brave smile, it felt like Sarah was keeping a promise of her own. The pieces of an impossible puzzle were falling into place around Marcus, creating a picture so intricate and meaningful that it took his breath away. The plane, the medical emergency, the mysterious donor, none of it had been coincidence. It had been Sarah somehow still keeping her promise to fight for every child while they still had moments left. She told me something else that night. Victoria continued, her voice barely above a whisper. She said that sometimes the people we save end up saving us in return, and that love has a way of finding itself across impossible distances. I didn't understand what she meant then. And now, Now I think she was preparing me to recognize you when the time came. You saved my life on that plane, Marcus. But more than that, you reminded me why I've been fighting all these years. Sarah's promise, David's memory, they led me to you and Lily. Across the pond, Lily had apparently concluded her negotiations with the geese and was now attempting to teach them a clapping game, her laughter carrying across the water like music. Victoria watched her with an expression of wonder mixed with grief, seeing perhaps her own son in Lily's determined joy. "The surgery will save her life," Victoria said. "But I want you to know that this isn't charity. This is a debt 20 years in the making, paid forward by a nurse who believed that every child deserved to be fought for." Marcus wiped his eyes, struggling to find words adequate to the moment. "Sarah would have wanted me to save you on that plane regardless of any connection between us." "I know. That's exactly why I knew you were the right person to help, and why Lily is the right child to save." Victoria stood smoothing her skirt, with hands that trembled slightly. "The surgery is scheduled for Tuesday. Dr. Chen is the best pediatric cardiac surgeon in the country, and Lily will receive every possible advantage medical science can provide." "How can I ever repay you?" Victoria smiled, and for the first time since Marcus had met her, the expression reached her eyes. "By letting Lily grow up to be the woman her mother would have been proud of. By teaching her that love doesn't end with death, it multiplies. And maybe someday, by helping her understand that sometimes the strangers we encounter carry pieces of the people we've lost, waiting to be recognized." As Victoria walked away, her figure gradually disappearing among the autumn trees, Marcus felt the presence of something larger than coincidence, more purposeful than chance. Sarah's influence stretched across years and circumstances, connecting dots he could never have imagined, weaving a safety net strong enough to catch her daughter when he could no longer hold on alone. "Daddy," Lily called from across the pond. "The geese said they're going to pray for my surgery." Marcus laughed, the sound carrying a joy he'd thought he might never feel again. "Did they really?" "Well, I told them to, and I think they understood because they nodded their heads." Lily skipped toward him, her steps lighter than they'd been in weeks, as if hope itself had become a medicine. "Are you crying happy tears or sad tears?" "Happy tears, sweetheart. Very happy tears." As they walked home through the gathering dusk, Lily's hand secure in his, and her breathing steady with the help of the oxygen concentrator, Marcus felt Sarah's presence as clearly as if she were walking beside them. The impossible had become inevitable, not through luck or coincidence, but through the kind of love that refuses to be contained by death, the kind of promise that finds ways to keep itself across decades and heartbreak. Tuesday was still 5 days away, but for the first time since Dr. Martinez had delivered his devastating diagnosis, Marcus allowed himself to believe that his daughter might live to see her 9th birthday, and her 10th, and all the birthdays that would follow. The stranger on the plane had indeed turned out to be an angel in disguise, just as Lily had predicted, carrying Sarah's promise forward into an impossible future that was somehow miraculously about to become real. The weekend stretched before them like a bridge between their old life of desperate hope and their new reality of surgical possibility. Marcus found himself caught in the strange limbo of preoperative waiting, where every moment felt simultaneously eternal and fleeting. Saturday morning brought unseasonably warm weather, and he decided to take Lily on the subway to visit the Museum of Natural History, partly to distract her from Tuesday's looming surgery, and partly because Sarah had always promised to take her there someday. As they climbed the steps to the museum's grand entrance, Lily paused to catch her breath, her small hand gripping the railing with determination that broke Marcus's heart. Even the simplest activities had become monumental efforts for her, yet she refused to complain or ask to rest. Look, Daddy. She pointed up at the towering skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus Rex visible through the museum's windows. It's like a dragon, but real. Inside the museum's cathedral-like halls, they wandered among displays of ancient worlds and distant stars. Lily was particularly fascinated by the planetarium show about the formation of the solar system, her eyes wide with wonder as simulated galaxies swirled overhead. "Do you think Mommy can see all the stars from heaven?" she whispered during a quiet moment between narrations. Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his throat that came whenever Lily mentioned Sarah. "I think she can see everything beautiful in the universe, including you. After my surgery, will I be strong enough to become an astronaut?" The question hit him with unexpected force. For months he'd been focused solely on keeping Lily alive from day to day. But her innocent inquiry suddenly opened up vistas of possibility he'd been afraid to contemplate. College career grandchildren, a whole life stretching ahead if Tuesday's surgery succeeded. "You can become anything you want to be, sweetheart. The universe is waiting for you to explore it." They ate lunch in the museum cafeteria where Lily carefully drew pictures of dinosaurs and planets in her sketchbook while picking at a grilled cheese sandwich. Marcus watched other families around them, parents taking photos, children running between tables. The casual chaos of ordinary life that he'd almost forgotten existed outside the realm of medical crises. "Mr. Hale." A soft voice behind him made Marcus turn around. A young woman with dark hair and kind eyes approached their table hesitantly. "I'm sorry to bother you, but are you the gentleman who helped someone on Flight 2847 from Phoenix?" Marcus felt a flutter of unease. "How did you know that?" "I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I work with Dr. Chen at Mount Sinai. Ms. Sterling asked me to check on you, and Lily make sure you're both doing well before Tuesday." The woman's smile was gentle and professional. "I hope you don't mind. She's concerned about you both." Lily looked up from her drawing with interest. "Are you a heart doctor too?" "I'm a pediatric anesthesiologist," Dr. Mitchell explained, sitting down across from them. "I'll be taking care of you during your surgery, making sure you sleep comfortably while Dr. Chen fixes your heart." "Will I have good dreams?" "The very best dreams. Some children tell me they dream about flying with angels or swimming with dolphins. What would you like to dream about?" Lily considered this seriously. "I want to dream about dancing with my mommy in a field full of sunflowers. She used to say that's what heaven looks like." Dr. Mitchell's eyes softened. "That sounds like a perfect dream. I'll make sure to suggest it to your sleeping mind." As Dr. Mitchell chatted with Lily about the surgery process in terms a child could understand, Marcus found himself studying her face. There was something familiar about her features, something that nagged at the edges of his memory. "Dr. Mitchell," he said finally. "Have we met before?" "You look familiar." She paused, seeming to weigh her words carefully. "Actually, we have met, though you might not remember. It was about 3 years ago at Phoenix General. You were the paramedic who brought in a car accident victim, a pregnant woman, who was coding in the ambulance." The memory rushed back with startling clarity. It had been one of the worst calls of his career, a young woman about 30 weeks pregnant, whose car had been hit by a drunk driver. She'd gone into cardiac arrest during transport, and Marcus had performed CPR for 12 minutes straight, refusing to give up even when protocol suggested it was hopeless. "You were the resident who met us at the ER," Marcus said slowly. "The woman and her baby, did they make it?" Dr. Mitchell's smile was radiant. "Both survived completely intact. The woman, Jennifer, sent me a Christmas card every year with photos of her daughter. That little girl is now 3 years old and perfectly healthy because you refused to stop fighting." The connection hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You were there that night." I was finishing my residency, and I'll never forget watching you work. Even after the monitors flatlined, even after everyone else was ready to call it, you kept going. You said something that stuck with me. You said that as long as there were people who loved that woman, she deserved every second of effort you could give her. Lily had been listening with the absorbed attention children give to adult conversations they don't fully understand, but sense are important. "Daddy saves people," she said matter-of-factly. "That's what he does." "Yes, he does," Dr. Mitchell agreed. "And now it's our turn to save someone he loves." After Dr. Mitchell left them to continue their museum visit, Marcus felt the weight of interconnections settling around him like a cosmic web. Sarah's colleague from 20 years ago funding Lily's surgery, a doctor whose life he'd touched now caring for his daughter. It was as if the universe were revealing patterns too intricate to be coincidental, too meaningful to be random. That evening, back in their small hotel room, Marcus helped Lily with the preoperative instructions Dr. Chen had provided. No food, after midnight Monday special soap for her morning shower medications to take and avoid. The clinical details of preparing for heart surgery seemed surreal when applied to someone who still slept with a stuffed elephant and believed in fairy godmothers. "Daddy, are you scared about Tuesday?" Lily asked as she settled into bed with her oxygen concentrator humming beside her. Marcus considered lying, offering some platitude about everything being fine, but Sarah had always insisted on honesty with Lily, even when the truth was difficult. "Yes, sweetheart, I am scared. But I'm also hopeful because you're the strongest person I know, and because the doctors taking care of you are the best in the world." "I'm scared too, but also excited. Do you think when they fix my heart, I'll be able to run really fast like other kids?" "I think you'll be able to do anything you set your mind to." Lily was quiet for a moment, her breathing steady in the dim light filtering through their window. "Daddy, do you think Mommy sent that lady on the airplane to help us?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications Marcus was still struggling to process. "What makes you ask that?" "Because in my dream, last night Mommy told me that sometimes she has to work really hard to arrange help for us from heaven. She said angels have to follow rules about how much they can interfere, but sometimes they find creative ways to help anyway." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. Whether Lily's dreams were genuine spiritual communication or simply the beautiful imagination of a child grappling with loss, they offered comfort he desperately needed. "Your mommy was always good at solving problems in creative ways. She said not to worry about Tuesday because she'll be with me the whole time. She said she's been practicing flying so she can keep up with the doctors." The image of Sarah's spirit soaring through operating rooms made Marcus smile despite his tears. "That sounds exactly like something your mommy would do." Sunday morning brought unexpected visitors. Marcus answered a knock at their hotel door to find Victoria Sterling standing in the hallway, but she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a man in his 40s with graying temples and Sarah's unmistakable green eyes. "Marcus, I'd like you to meet Dr. James Chen. He's Dr. Elena Chen's husband and a cardiologist himself, but more importantly for today, he's also my godson." Marcus felt his world shift slightly as more connections revealed themselves. "Your godson, David's best friend," Victoria explained as they entered the small room. "They were in the same kindergarten class before David got sick. James was with us through much of David's treatment, and afterward," she paused, her voice catching slightly. "Afterward, he decided he wanted to become a doctor who fixed hearts instead of watching them break." Dr. James Chen stepped forward, his handshake firm and warm. "Ms. Sterling has told me about your situation, and I wanted to meet you and Lily before tomorrow's surgery. My wife is exceptional at what she does, but I know having heart surgery can feel overwhelming, especially for families." Lily emerged from the bathroom where she'd been brushing her teeth, her eyes widening at the sight of visitors. "Are you another heart doctor?" "I am, though I usually work with grown-ups instead of brave young ladies like you." Chen knelt down to her level. "I heard you're having surgery tomorrow to fix your heart valve." "Dr. Elena is going to make me better so I can run and play like other kids," Lily said confidently. "And Dr. Sarah is going to make sure I have good dreams about dancing with my mommy." James Chen's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition crossing his features. "Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the anesthesiologist." "You know her too?" Marcus asked. "We trained together at Johns Hopkins. Sarah is one of the most gifted anesthesiologists I've ever worked with." James paused, studying Marcus with new interest. "Small world, isn't it?" Victoria had been unusually quiet during this exchange, but now she spoke up. "Actually, it's not such a small world. It's just that some stories have a way of weaving themselves through multiple lives, creating patterns we don't always see until we step back far enough to view the whole tapestry." She moved to the window, looking out at the bustling street below. 20 years ago, when David was dying, I made a lot of promises to God, to the universe, to anyone who might be listening. I promised that if I couldn't save my son, I would dedicate my life to saving other children. But that wasn't the only promise I made. Marcus felt the room grow still, as if everyone present sensed they were about to hear something significant. "I also promised David in those final moments that I would find a way to create a family again someday. Not to replace what we'd lost, but to honor it by building something new." Victoria turned back to face them. "For 20 years, I've been successful in business. I've saved hospitals, I've funded research, but I've remained alone. I told myself it was by choice, that I was too busy, too focused on my mission." She looked directly at Marcus. "But I think the truth is that I was waiting for the right people to save people who might be willing to let an old woman be part of their story going forward." The implication of her words hung in the air like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Marcus felt his heart racing, not with anxiety, but with the recognition of possibility he'd been afraid to name. "What are you saying, Victoria?" "I'm saying that after Lily's surgery, after she recovers and becomes the healthy, vibrant child she deserves to be, I'd like to be part of watching her grow up. Not as a stranger who helped once, but as family." Her voice carried the vulnerability of someone offering their heart, knowing it might be refused. "I'm saying that Sarah's promise to fight for every child led me not just to Lily, but to both of you, and I think that's exactly what she intended." Lily, who had been listening with the intense focus she gave to all important adult conversations, suddenly broke into a radiant smile. "You mean like a grandma?" Victoria's composure finally cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "If you'd like that. If your daddy thinks it would be okay." Marcus looked at this woman who had appeared in their lives like an answer to prayers he'd been afraid to voice. She had lost a son and spent 20 years trying to fill that emptiness with purpose, while he had been trying to save a daughter and fill the emptiness Sarah's death had left behind. The symmetry was almost too perfect to believe. "Lily," he said softly, "what do you think about having a Grandma Victoria?" "I think Mommy would say that's exactly what she was planning all along." Lily walked over to Victoria and took her hand with the casual confidence of a child accepting love wherever she found it. "Will you teach me about business and hospitals and how to help other sick kids?" Victoria laughed through her tears. "I'll teach you everything I know if you'll teach me how to be a grandmother, Doctor." James Chen had been watching this exchange with growing emotion. "You know," he said quietly, "David used to talk about wanting a sister. He said when he got better, he was going to ask his mom to adopt a little girl so he wouldn't be lonely anymore." "He never told me that," Victoria whispered. "He was planning to surprise you." He said he wanted to find a little girl who needed as much love as he did, so you could both take care of each other. James smiled at Lily. I think he would have loved you very much. The hotel room had become a sanctuary of connection, filled with the kind of family that forms not through blood, but through shared loss hope and the mysterious ways that love finds expression across time and circumstance. Marcus felt Sarah's presence so strongly, he could almost see her standing in the corner with her arms crossed, and that satisfied smile she wore when one of her plans came together perfectly. There's one more thing, Victoria said, reaching into her purse. She withdrew a small velvet box and held it out to Marcus. This was David's. I've been carrying it for 20 years, waiting for the right moment to pass it along. Inside the box was a simple gold chain with a small pendant shaped like an airplane, the metal worn smooth by a child's touch. He was wearing this when he died. He said someday it should go to another brave kid who needed to remember that even when you can't see where you're going, you can still keep flying. Marcus's hands shook as he lifted the necklace. Victoria, I can't. This is too precious. It's not precious if it sits in a drawer, she said firmly. It's only precious if it reminds someone that they're loved and that they're brave enough to face whatever comes next. Lily held very still as Marcus fastened the chain around her neck, the airplane pendant resting just over her heart. It feels warm, she said wonderingly. That's David's courage keeping your heart company, Victoria explained. Tomorrow when you're in surgery, remember that you're carrying the bravery of everyone who loves you. Your daddy, me, your mommy watching from heaven, and a little boy who wanted to be a pilot but became an angel instead. As evening approached, and their visitors prepared to leave, Victoria pulled Marcus aside while Lily was showing Dr. Chen her drawings of dinosaurs and spaceships. I want you to know, she said quietly, that regardless of how you feel about my offer to be part of your family, Lily's surgery and all her future medical needs are completely covered. That's not conditional on anything except my promise to Sarah and my love for that little girl in there. And how I feel about having you as family. Victoria's smile was tentative, hopeful. I'm hoping you'll give a lonely old woman the chance to love you both the way I should have been loving someone all along. Sarah gave me a gift 20 years ago when she showed me how to find meaning in loss. Now you've given me a gift by letting me recognize love when it arrives wearing the disguise of coincidence. Marcus thought about the past week, the plane, the surgery funding, the web of connections that had brought them to this moment, and realized that Victoria was right. None of it had been coincidence. It had been love working through human hands and hearts to weave safety nets strong enough to catch falling families and lift them toward hope. Lily's going to need someone to spoil her rotten after she recovers from surgery, he said finally. I excel at spoiling. It's one of my few untested skills. And she'll need someone to teach her about being strong and successful and not letting the world tell her what she can't do. I wrote the book on that subject. Marcus smiled, feeling lighter than he had in years. Then I guess we'd better figure out how to be a family, because that little girl in there has already decided you belong to us. That night, as Lily slept with David's airplane pendant, catching the light from the street lamp outside their window, Marcus sat in the chair beside her bed and called his sister in Phoenix. Kelly, it's Marcus. I need to tell you something amazing that's happened, and I need you to understand that I'm not delirious from stress. He paused, listening to Lily's steady breathing, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. It turns out miracles are real, and they come disguised as strangers on airplanes who turn out to be exactly the angels we needed all along. Monday morning arrived with crystalline clarity, the kind of day that makes New York City look like a movie set designed to inspire confidence and possibility. Marcus woke early to find Lily already awake, sitting by the window and watching the city come alive below. "Are you ready for today, sweetheart?" "I dreamed about tomorrow night," she said thoughtfully. "In my dream, I could take really deep breaths, and my heart felt strong, like a drum beating a happy song." They spent the morning completing pre-operative preparations, the special shower with antibacterial soap, the final medications, the careful removal of David's necklace, which would have to wait until after surgery to be returned to its place over Lily's heart. Victoria arrived at noon with a car service to take them to Mount Sinai, her presence calm and reassuring as they navigated the pre-surgical maze of paperwork and procedures. Dr. Elena Chen met them in the pre-operative area, her manner both professional and warmly personal. "How are we feeling today, Lily? Ready to get my heart fixed so I can be strong like my daddy?" "That's exactly the attitude we like to see. Now I want you to know that there will be a lot of people in the operating room tomorrow, all working together to take the very best care of you. Dr. Sarah will make sure you're comfortable, and I'll be fixing your heart valve so it works perfectly." Lily nodded seriously. "And my mommy will be there too, making sure everyone remembers how much I'm loved." Dr. Chen's eyes met Marcus's over Lily's head, a moment of understanding passing between them. "I'm sure she will be. Love is the most powerful medicine we have." As they completed the final preparations, Marcus found himself surrounded by a community he hadn't known existed. Dr. Sarah Mitchell stopping by to review anesthesia plans. Dr. James Chen consulting on cardiac protocols, Victoria quietly handling logistics with the efficiency of someone accustomed to making impossible things happen. Even Saul from the deli appeared with a care package of Lily's favorite pickles and a hand-drawn card from his granddaughter, wishing her luck. "You see," Victoria murmured to Marcus, as they watched Lily accept well-wishes from this unlikely collection of supporters. "Family isn't just about blood. Sometimes it's about all the people who show up when showing up matters most." That evening, as Marcus tucked Lily into her hospital bed for the last time with her original damaged heart, she looked up at him with Sarah's eyes and spoke words that would stay with him forever. "Daddy, I want you to know that no matter what happens tomorrow, I've had the most wonderful life. I got to have the best daddy in the world, and I got to love the most beautiful mommy, and now I have a grandma who flew across the country just to save me. Even if I were going to heaven tomorrow, I'd still be the luckiest girl who ever lived." Marcus kissed her forehead, his heart breaking and healing simultaneously. "You're going to have many, many more wonderful years, sweetheart. This is just the beginning of your story." "I know," she said sleepily. "Mommy told me in my dream that tomorrow starts the part where I get to be the hero of my own adventure, instead of just being brave while other people take care of me." As Lily drifted off to sleep, Marcus sat beside her bed, holding Victoria's hand, both of them keeping vigil over the child who had brought them together and shown them that love never really dies. It just finds new ways to express itself through the strangers who turn out to be exactly the family we needed all along. Tomorrow would bring surgery risk and the possibility of complete healing. But tonight, in the quiet of the preoperative ward, Marcus felt Sarah's presence like a benediction, her promise to fight for every child finding its ultimate expression in the woman beside him, and the sleeping girl whose repaired heart would carry forward all the love that had refused to be contained by death, distance, or the seemingly impossible odds against finding each other in a world of 8 billion strangers who sometimes miraculously turn out to be exactly the angels we've been praying for all along. The morning of Lily's surgery dawned with the kind of hushed anticipation that seems to hold the entire world in suspended animation. Marcus had barely slept, alternating between watching the steady rise and fall of his daughter's chest and staring out the hospital window at the city awakening below. At 5:30, as the first hints of sunrise painted the Manhattan skyline in shades of gold, and Rose Lily stirred in her narrow hospital bed. "Is it time, Daddy?" Her voice carried the drowsy confusion of someone caught between sleep and waking, but her eyes were alert and surprisingly calm. "Almost, sweetheart. The nurses will be here soon to take you to the pre-op area." Marcus smoothed her hair, marveling at how small she looked in the adult-sized hospital bed, yet how much strength seemed to radiate from her delicate frame. Victoria had spent the night in the chair beside them, refusing Marcus's suggestions that she return to her hotel. She stirred now at the sound of their voices, her silver hair slightly mussed, but her eyes immediately focused and alert. "Good morning, my brave girl," she said softly, reaching over to take Lily's hand. "How did you sleep?" "I dreamed I was flying," Lily replied, her face lighting up with the memory. "Not in an airplane, but really flying like a bird. And Mommy was there teaching me how to navigate by following the stars." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "That sounds like a beautiful dream." It was. And in the dream, Mommy told me that today is going to be perfect, because all the people who love me are going to be holding my heart while the doctors fix it. Dr. Sarah Mitchell appeared in the doorway, her scrubs fresh and her smile warm despite the early hour. "Good morning, Lily. Are you ready for our adventure today?" "I'm ready. Will you remember to tell my sleeping mind to dream about dancing with Mommy?" "I'll remember everything we talked about." Dr. Mitchell approached the bed, her manner gentle but professional. "I have something special for you today." She held up a small stuffed airplane no bigger than Lily's palm. "This is going to come with you into the operating room, so you'll have a friend keeping you company the whole time." Lily accepted the toy with reverence, her fingers tracing its tiny wings. "It looks like the airplane on my necklace." "That's not a coincidence," Victoria said quietly. "Dr. Mitchell asked me what would comfort you most, and I told her about David's necklace." The preoperative area bustled with controlled activity as nurses and technicians prepared for the day's surgeries. Lily was wheeled into a space separated from the others by cheerful curtains printed with butterflies and rainbows, a small concession to childhood in an environment dominated by medical necessity. Dr. Elena Chen arrived dressed in surgical scrubs, her dark hair pulled back severely, but her eyes warm as she approached Lily's gurney. "How's our patient this morning?" "Ready to get a strong heart," Lily announced with a confidence that made all the adults exchange glances of amazement. "That's exactly what we're going to give you. Now I want to explain what's going to happen so you won't be worried about anything." Dr. Chen pulled up a chair, positioning herself at Lily's eye level. "First, Doctor, Sarah is going to help you fall asleep with medicine that makes you feel like you're floating on a cloud. Then, while you're having your beautiful dreams, I'm going to make a small opening in your chest and replace the valve in your heart with a new one that works perfectly. Will it hurt? Not while you're asleep, and we'll make sure you're very comfortable when you wake up. The new valve is made from special materials that will grow with you as you get bigger, so you'll only need to have this surgery once." Lily nodded solemnly, processing this information with the seriousness of someone twice her age. "How long will I be asleep?" "About 4 hours. When you wake up, your daddy and Grandma Victoria will be right there waiting for you." The casual use of Grandma Victoria made the older woman's eyes fill with tears. In the space of a week, she had gone from being a stranger to being claimed as family by a child whose capacity for love seemed to expand to include everyone who showed her kindness. Dr. James Chen appeared at the nurses' station, consulting with the surgical team about final preparations. He caught Marcus's eye and approached the family area. "How are we doing over here?" "Lily's being incredibly brave. Marcus replied, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. I wanted to let you know that this is going to be a collaborative surgery. Elena will be lead surgeon, but I'll be assisting, and we have the best cardiac team at Mount Sinai working with us today. James paused, his expression growing more personal. I also wanted you to know that David's memory will be in that operating room with us. Every child we save carries a piece of all the children we couldn't save, and their love pushes us to be better than we thought we could be. A nurse appeared with a clipboard and the gentle authority of someone who had guided thousands of families through this moment. It's time for Lily to go back to the OR. Parents can walk with her as far as the surgical doors. Marcus felt his knees go weak. All the preparation, all the hope, all the faith. It all condensed into this moment of letting go, of placing his daughter's life in the hands of others, and trusting that love would be enough to guide them all safely through the next 4 hours. Daddy, don't cry, Lily said, as the gurney began to move. Remember what Mommy used to say. Sometimes letting go is the bravest thing you can do. Victoria walked on one side of the gurney, Marcus on the other, their hands both resting on the white sheet that covered Lily's small form. As they approached the double doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only," the moment of separation loomed like a wall between present and future. I love you more than all the stars in the sky, Marcus whispered, leaning down to kiss Lily's forehead. I love you more than all the fish in the ocean, she replied, their familiar exchange carrying the weight of ritual and comfort. And I love you more than I ever thought it was possible to love someone I've known for such a short time, Victoria added, her voice breaking slightly. That's because love doesn't need time, Lily said, with the wisdom that sometimes emerges from children facing extraordinary circumstances. Love just needs room to grow, and there's always room if you make space in your heart. Dr. Sarah Mitchell took control of the gurney as they reached the surgical doors. This is where we say goodbye for now, she told Marcus and Victoria gently. The next time you see her, she'll have a perfect heart and a lifetime of adventures ahead of her. As the doors swung closed behind them, Marcus felt as though part of his soul had been carried away on that gurney. Victoria's arm slipped through his, offering support and taking comfort in equal measure, and together they walked toward the family waiting area where the next 4 hours would unfold with excruciating slowness. The surgical waiting room at Mount Sinai had been designed with family comfort. In mind, soft lighting, comfortable seating, a coffee station, and windows that looked out over the East River. But no amount of thoughtful design could ease the particular agony of parents waiting while their child's chest was opened and their heart was stopped and restarted by human hands guided by skill, experience, and hope. Marcus and Victoria settled into chairs near the window where they could see the morning sun climbing higher over the water. Other families occupied the space around them, each lost in their own bubble of anxiety and prayer, each waiting for word that would either validate their faith or shatter their world. Tell me about Sarah, Victoria said after they had been sitting in silence for nearly an hour. I knew her professionally briefly, but I want to know about her as Lily's mother, as your wife. Marcus smiled despite his anxiety, grateful for the distraction of happy memories. She was the kind of person who made everyone around her feel like they mattered. When she walked into a room, she didn't just see patients or students or strangers. She saw people who needed something, and she had this uncanny ability to figure out exactly what that something was. Lily has that same quality. Sarah used to say that some people are born with their hearts turned outward, always looking for ways to give love instead of get it. She said those people usually have the hardest lives because they feel everything so deeply, but they also have the most beautiful lives because they experience connection everywhere they go. Victoria nodded thoughtfully. That describes David perfectly. Even when he was sickest, he was more worried about the other children in the ward than about himself. He used to save half his dessert to give to kids who were too nauseated to eat their own meals. They shared stories as the morning progressed, weaving together the threads of memory that connected their children across time and circumstance. Sarah's habit of leaving encouraging notes in Marcus's lunchbox. David's collection of airplane models that he gave away to other hospitalized children before he died. Lily's insistence on thanking the hospital janitors and cafeteria workers by name because everyone who helps sick kids is important. At 11:30, Dr. James Chen emerged from the surgical area still wearing his scrubs, but with his surgical cap removed. Marcus and Victoria both stood immediately, their hearts racing, as they tried to read his expression. "How is she?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. James smiled, the kind of smile that carries relief and triumph in equal measure. "She's perfect. The surgery went flawlessly, better than flawlessly, actually. The valve replacement was textbook, and her heart responded beautifully to every intervention. Elena is just finishing up the closing now." Victoria pressed her hands to her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Is she going to be okay? Really okay?" "More than okay. Her heart function is already improved from where it was before surgery. In 6 months, she'll be able to do everything any other 8-year-old can do, and in a year, you'll have to work hard to remember that she was ever sick at all." Marcus felt his knees buckle with relief, and James caught his arm, steadying him with the practiced ease of someone who had delivered this news many times before. "When can we see her?" "She's being moved to recovery now. It'll be about an hour before she's awake enough for visitors. But I can take you to see her sleeping if you'd like." Sometimes parents need to see their child breathing on their own before they can really believe the surgery was successful. They followed James through a maze of corridors to the cardiac recovery unit, where Lily lay in a bed surrounded by monitors that beeped and hummed with reassuring regularity. Her skin had more color than Marcus had seen in months, and even unconscious, she looked peaceful, in a way that spoke of a body finally functioning as it was meant to. "Look at her," Victoria whispered in amazement. "Even asleep, she looks stronger." Dr. Elena Chen appeared beside them, having changed out of her surgical gown, but still wearing the satisfied expression of a surgeon who had just performed a perfect procedure. "She did beautifully," Elena reported. Her heart took to the new valve like it had been waiting for it all along. The tissue integration was perfect. The rhythm is strong and steady, and all her other systems are functioning normally. "When will she wake up?" Marcus asked, unable to take his eyes off his daughter's sleeping form. "Dr. Mitchell will start reducing the anesthesia in about 30 minutes. She should be conscious within an hour after that." Elena paused, studying Marcus's face. "I want you to be prepared that she might be groggy and disoriented when she first wakes up. That's completely normal after this type of surgery." As if summoned by the mention of her name, Dr. Sarah Mitchell joined them at Lily's bedside. "She's been a model patient," she reported with a smile. "Her vital signs have been stable throughout the entire procedure, and she's going to have a very comfortable recovery." "Did she dream about dancing with her mother?" Victoria asked. "I made sure to suggest it, and from her brain activity during the lighter stages of anesthesia, I'd say she's been having very pleasant dreams indeed." They maintained their vigil as the afternoon wore on, watching monitors, observing the gradual changes that indicated Lily's return to consciousness. At 3:15, her eyelids began to flutter, and Marcus leaned forward eagerly. "Lily, sweetheart, can you hear Daddy?" Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then gradually finding his face. "Daddy." Her voice was hoarse from the breathing tube, but it carried a strength that made his heart soar. "I'm right here, baby girl. The surgery is all over and you did perfectly. Is my heart fixed? Dr. Elena Chen moved into Lily's line of sight. Your heart is absolutely perfect now. Can you feel how much easier it is to breathe? Lily took an experimental deep breath, her eyes widening with wonder. It doesn't hurt, and I can breathe all the way in without getting dizzy. That's your new valve working exactly like it should, Elena explained. You're going to feel better and stronger every day from now on. Victoria appeared on the other side of the bed, her face radiant with joy and relief. Hello, my brave granddaughter. How do you feel? Like I could run a race, Lily said, then paused thoughtfully. Did Mommy visit while I was sleeping? Did you see her in your dreams? Marcus asked. She was there the whole time. She said she got to work with all the doctors to make sure everything went perfectly. And she said to tell you that she's not worried about me anymore, because now I have all of you to take care of me while she takes care of other kids who need her help. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face, but for the first time in months, they were tears of pure joy rather than fear and desperation. The recovery process unfolded like a time-lapse film of healing and renewal. Each day brought visible improvements, color returning to Lily's cheeks, energy levels rising, the gradual disappearance of the pallor and breathlessness that had marked her illness. By the third day post-surgery, she was sitting up in bed demanding to know when she could go explore the hospital's gift shop. The incision looks beautiful, Dr. Elena Chen reported during morning rounds. No signs of infection, excellent healing, and her heart function is better than we dared to hope. I think we can start talking about discharge. When? Marcus asked, hardly daring to believe they were approaching the end of this chapter. If she continues to progress like this, perhaps Friday. That would be 1 week post-surgery, which is actually faster than average, but Lily seems determined to prove that she's an exceptional patient. Victoria had barely left the hospital during Lily's recovery, conducting business calls from the family lounge, and turning Lily's room into an impromptu office where she could work while keeping an eye on her new granddaughter. She had also been quietly making arrangements that she hadn't yet discussed with Marcus. I've been thinking about your housing situation, she said one afternoon, as they watched Lily work on a puzzle depicting various types of aircraft. Your apartment lease in Phoenix is up next month, isn't it? Marcus nodded. I haven't thought much about what comes next. I suppose I'll look for another place when we get back. What if you didn't go back? What if you considered staying in New York? The suggestion caught Marcus off guard. Victoria, I appreciate everything you've done, but I can't let you. This isn't about letting me do anything, she interrupted firmly. This is about what makes sense for Lily's continued care and for all of us as a family, Dr. Chen wants to monitor Lily's progress closely for the first year after surgery. Mount Sinai has one of the best pediatric cardiology programs in the country, and frankly, I've gotten accustomed to having you both in my life. Lily looked up from her puzzle with interest. Does this mean we could live near Grandma Victoria and visit the museum whenever we want? It means, Victoria said carefully, that I have a proposition for your father. Sterling Healthcare is opening a new emergency medicine training center here in Manhattan. We need someone to develop the curriculum and oversee the paramedic training programs, someone with extensive field experience who understands both the medical and human sides of emergency care. Marcus stared at her. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a career that would utilize everything you've learned as a paramedic, while also giving you the stability and financial security that Lily deserves. The salary would be more than enough to support you both comfortably, and the position comes with comprehensive medical benefits that would cover all of Lily's ongoing care. And it just happens to be based in New York where you live. Victoria smiled. That's not a coincidence. I told you I wanted to be part of watching Lily grow up. I meant it. Marcus looked at his daughter, who was now bouncing slightly with excitement, despite her recent surgery. What do you think, sweetheart? Would you like to live in New York? Can we get an apartment where I can see the stars? We'll find you the best star-viewing apartment in the city, Victoria promised. That evening, after Lily had fallen asleep, Marcus and Victoria walked to the hospital's outdoor garden, where they could speak privately about the magnitude of the changes being proposed. This is all happening so fast, Marcus said, settling onto a bench beside a fountain, where the sound of running water provided a soothing backdrop to their conversation. Some decisions require time to consider all the angles, Victoria replied. Others are simply recognition of what was always meant to be. Which kind of decision does this feel like to you? Marcus considered the question seriously. A week ago, I thought I knew what our life was going to look like, struggling to pay medical bills, watching Lily get sicker, maybe losing her despite everything I could do to save her. Now you're telling me that not only is she going to be completely healthy, but that we can have financial security and the kind of family support I never dared to hope for. Sarah's influence, Victoria said simply. She promised to fight for every child while they still had moments left, but I think she also promised to fight for every family while they still had hope left. You really believe she orchestrated all of this, the plane, the medical emergency, your decision to fund Lily's surgery? Victoria was quiet for a long moment, watching the play of light on the fountain's spray. I believe that love finds ways to express itself that we don't always understand. I believe that Sarah's love for you and Lily was strong enough to reach across death and guide you both toward exactly the help you needed. And I believe that my love for David was strong enough to recognize that help when it appeared even disguised as a medical emergency at 37,000 feet. And your love for us now is real and growing stronger every day, not as a replacement for the family I lost, but as a continuation of the love that has been looking for expression ever since David died. Victoria turned to face him directly. I'm not asking you to let me take care of you out of guilt or obligation or even gratitude. I'm asking you to let me love you both, because that's what my heart wants to do, and because I think it's what your hearts want too. Marcus felt the truth of her words settling into his bones, like warmth after cold. Lily's already claimed you as family. And how do you feel about that? Like maybe Sarah knew exactly what she was doing when she made sure our paths crossed. Marcus smiled. Like maybe the three of us were always meant to find each other, and everything else was just the universe arranging the proper introductions. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that makes promises of new beginnings feel tangible and achievable. Lily had been awake since dawn, eagerly anticipating her discharge and the start of what she had taken to calling her new life with a strong heart. Dr. Elena Chen arrived for final rounds with a folder full of discharge papers and a smile that suggested complete satisfaction with her patient's recovery. How are we feeling today, Lily? Like I could climb mountains, Lily replied, sitting up straighter than Marcus had seen her sit in months. That's exactly what I like to hear. Now I want to go over some instructions for the next few weeks while your body finishes healing. The instructions were far less restrictive than Marcus had feared. No heavy lifting for 6 weeks, but normal activity encouraged. Regular cardiology follow-ups, but no daily medications required. A healthy diet and plenty of exercise, with the understanding that Lily's activity tolerance would continue to improve as her heart grew stronger. When can I start dance lessons? Lily asked, her eyes bright with possibilities she had never dared to voice before. In about 2 months, if that's something you'd like to do, Dr. Chen replied. Your heart is going to be able to handle any activity you want to try. As they prepared to leave the hospital, Marcus felt overwhelmed by the contrast between his emotions a week ago and his feelings now. 7 days earlier, he had walked into Mount Sinai carrying his dying daughter and the desperate hope that medical science might offer a miracle. Now he was leaving with a healthy child and a future that stretched ahead like an open road filled with infinite possibilities. Victoria had arranged for a car service to take them to their hotel, where they would spend the weekend, before making final decisions about their next steps. As they settled into the comfortable seats, Lily between Marcus and Victoria, Marcus realized that they had already become a family, in the truest sense, not because of shared DNA, but because of shared love, shared hope, and shared commitment to caring for each other through whatever lay ahead. "Grandma Victoria," Lily said as they drove through Central Park, where the leaves were now displaying their full autumn glory. "Will you tell me more stories about David? I want to know about my angel brother." Victoria's eyes filled with tears, but her smile was radiant. "I'll tell you everything I remember about him, and maybe you can tell me what he says when you see him in your dreams. He says he's happy we found each other, and he says Mommy is teaching him how to be a really good guardian angel, so he can help take care of other kids whose hearts need fixing." Marcus reached over to take Victoria's hand, completing the circle of connection that had formed around his daughter. Through the car window, he could see the city that had become their salvation spreading out around them, millions of people living their lives, pursuing their dreams, facing their challenges, often of them unaware that somewhere in their midst, a small miracle of love and healing had just taken place. As they pulled up to their hotel, Marcus felt Sarah's presence one more time, not as a haunting echo of loss, but as a gentle benediction of approval. She had kept her promise in ways he never could have imagined, fighting for her child, by arranging exactly the right help, at exactly the right moment, delivered by exactly the right people who were destined to become family. The future stretched ahead of them now, bright with promise and rich with the kind of love that transforms strangers into guardian angels and coincidences into destiny. Lily's heart was strong, their family was complete, and somewhere in the mystery of connection that binds all human souls together, Sarah and David were smiling, their own love multiplied through the earthly hands that had learned to carry it forward into a world where miracles still happen to those brave enough to recognize them when they arrive. The weekend passed in a blur of planning and possibility, with Victoria making phone calls to arrange everything from apartment viewings to school enrollment, while Marcus marveled at how quickly their entire future was being reshaped. By Sunday evening, they had toured 3 apartments on the Upper West Side, each more beautiful than the last, each representing a life Marcus had never dared to imagine for himself and Lily. "This one has the best view of the stars," Lily announced as they stood in the living room of a 2-bedroom apartment on the 15th floor, the city lights twinkling below them like earthbound constellations. "It also has a doorman who seems very fond of children," Victoria observed with a knowing smile. "And it's only 6 blocks from the best elementary school in the neighborhood." Marcus walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows holding Lily's hand as they looked out over the city that was about to become their home. "Are you sure about this, sweetheart, leaving Phoenix, starting over in a completely new place?" Lily considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. "Daddy, I think sometimes home isn't a place you go back to. Sometimes it's a place you discover when you're brave enough to let your heart lead you somewhere new." The wisdom in her words took his breath away. "Where did you learn to be so smart? From Mommy, from you, and from Grandma Victoria. And also from David. He visits me in my dreams and tells me things about being brave and about how families can grow in ways you don't expect." Victoria wiped tears from her eyes as she joined them at the window. "Well, then I suppose we should tell the realtor we'll take it." 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in that same living room surrounded by boxes, and the controlled chaos of a family settling into a new home. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, unpacking her art supplies with the focused determination of someone organizing tools for important work. She had been drawing constantly since her surgery, vibrant pictures of hearts and airplanes and families of varying configurations, all watched over by figures she identified as angels with Sarah's face and David's airplane collection. "Daddy, where should I put my special box?" Lily held up a small wooden jewelry box that had belonged to Sarah, where she kept David's airplane necklace when she wasn't wearing it. "Wherever feels right to you, sweetheart." She walked to the window and placed the box on the wide sill where the morning sun would touch it first each day. This way, Mommy and David can see the whole city and watch over all the kids who need help. Victoria appeared in the doorway carrying coffee and the satisfaction of someone who had just finished setting up a proper home office in what used to be a rarely used second bedroom. "How are the unpacking efforts proceeding?" "Lily's been the most organized person in this entire process," Marcus replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "I think she's more excited about this move than either of us." "That's because children understand something adults forget," Victoria said, settling into one of the new chairs she'd insisted on buying for the living room. "They understand that every ending is also a beginning, and that the best adventures happen when you're brave enough to say yes to the unexpected." The phone rang, interrupting their domestic tranquility. Marcus answered to find Dr. Elena Chen on the line, calling with results from Lily's most recent cardiac follow-up. "I have excellent news," Dr. Chen reported, her voice carrying the satisfaction of a job well done. "Lily's heart function is now completely normal. Better than normal, actually. The valve is functioning perfectly, and all her cardiac output parameters are in the 95th percentile for children her age." "What does that mean in plain English?" Marcus asked, though Lily's boundless energy over the past 3 weeks had already suggested the answer. "It means she has the heart of an athlete now. She can do absolutely anything any other 9-year-old can do, and probably more. I've never seen such a complete recovery from valve replacement surgery." After Marcus shared the news, Lily jumped up from her art supplies and spun in a circle, her arms outstretched, her face radiant with joy. "Can I call and tell Saul at the deli? And Dr. Sarah? And everyone who helped make my heart strong? We can call everyone," Marcus promised, watching his daughter dance around the living room with an energy and freedom that still amazed him every day. That afternoon brought their first visitor to the new apartment. James Chen arrived carrying a bottle of champagne and a gift bag that immediately captured Lily's attention. "A housewarming present," he explained as Lily carefully extracted a model airplane from the tissue paper. It was a replica of a vintage passenger plane painted in silver and blue, with tiny windows and propellers that actually turned. "It looks like the plane where we met Grandma Victoria," Lily observed, running her fingers over the smooth wings. "That's exactly what it's supposed to be. A reminder that sometimes the most important journeys happen when we least expect them." James settled into one of Victoria's new chairs, accepting a glass of the champagne Victoria had opened. "I also came to talk to you about something else." He reached into his jacket and withdrew an official-looking document. "Elena and I have been talking with the hospital administration about establishing a new program, a foundation that would provide funding for pediatric cardiac surgeries for families who can't afford them." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "That's incredible. What would something like that involve?" "We want to call it the Sarah and David Foundation?" James continued, glancing at Victoria. "We'd like you both to be founding board members. Marcus, your experience as a paramedic, and now as a father who's been through this process, would be invaluable in helping us identify families who need help. And Victoria, your business experience and connections in the healthcare industry would help us make this a sustainable program." Victoria leaned forward, her eyes bright with interest. "How many children are we talking about helping?" "Potentially hundreds," There are families like yours all across the country, good people facing impossible choices because their children need surgery they can't afford. With proper funding and organization, we could create a network that ensures no child dies from a treatable heart condition because of financial barriers. Lily had been listening while playing with her new airplane, but now she looked up with sudden intensity. Would we help kids like me, kids whose hearts are broken but could be fixed? Exactly like you, James confirmed. Every child we save would be saved partly because of what you went through, and partly because your family decided to turn their experience into help for others. Mommy would love that, Lily said with certainty. She always said that when something good happens to you, you should use it to make good things happen for other people too. Victoria reached for Marcus's hand. What do you think? Are you ready to help save more children's hearts? Marcus looked around the living room at Victoria, whose love had transformed their desperation into hope. At James, whose skill had given Lily a perfect heart. At Lily herself, healthy and vibrant, and ready to dance through life with the boundless energy of someone who had been given a second chance. The symmetry was perfect. They had been saved by strangers who became family, and now they would save strangers who might become family to others. I think, he said slowly, that Sarah and David would be proud to have their names on something that turns love into action. 6 months later, the Sarah and David Foundation held its first annual fundraising gala at the Plaza Hotel, a glittering event that brought together New York's medical and philanthropic communities in support of pediatric cardiac care. Marcus stood at the edge of the ballroom in his first ever tuxedo, watching Victoria work the room with the practiced ease of someone who had spent decades building relationships that could save lives. Lily, resplendent in a navy blue dress that matched Victoria's evening gown, was holding court at a table full of doctors and their families, explaining the foundation's mission with the passionate eloquence of someone who had lived its necessity. Every month we help 3 families whose kids need heart surgery, she was saying to Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who had become a regular fixture in their lives over the past months. Last month we helped a little boy in Texas who was the same age I was when my heart got sick. His name is Miguel, and he sent me a picture of him playing soccer after his surgery. That must make you feel wonderful, Dr. Sarah replied. It makes me feel like my broken heart was worth something important. Like maybe I had to get sick so I could understand how to help other kids get better. Marcus felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to find Dr. Elena Chen approaching with a woman and young girl he didn't recognize. Marcus, I'd like you to meet Jennifer Thompson and her daughter Emma, Elena said. Emma just had valve replacement surgery last week, funded by the Sarah and David Foundation. Emma, who looked to be about 7 years old, stepped forward shyly. Are you Lily's daddy, the one who saves people in ambulances? I am. How are you feeling, Emma? Like I can breathe all the way to my toes, she replied with a giggle. Lily sent me a card in the hospital, and she drew a picture of 2 hearts dancing together. She said that's what it feels like when your heart gets strong. Jennifer Thompson's eyes were bright with tears as she shook Marcus's hand. I don't know how to thank you and your family. 3 months ago, I thought I was going to watch my daughter die. Now she's asking to sign up for gymnastics classes. No thanks necessary, Marcus replied, meaning it completely. This foundation exists because strangers helped us when we needed it most. Now we get to pass that help along. As the evening progressed, Marcus found himself thinking about the chain of connections that had brought them to this moment. A medical emergency on an airplane had led to a surgery that had led to a family that had led to a foundation that would save hundreds of children's lives. Sarah's promise to fight for every child, while they still had moments left, had multiplied beyond anything he could have imagined. Near midnight, as the gala wound down and the last guests were saying their goodbyes, Marcus and Victoria found themselves alone on the hotel's terrace looking out over Central Park, where autumn was giving way to winter. "Penny for your thoughts," Victoria said, wrapping her cashmere shawl more tightly around her shoulders. "I was thinking about how many lives Sarah touched without ever knowing it. 20 years ago, she comforted your son and made you a promise that led to saving Lily. Today, that same promise helped us raise enough money to fund heart surgery for 36 children over the next year." 62, Victoria corrected with a smile. 62. "I may have made some additional commitments tonight. Sterling Healthcare is expanding its charitable giving program, and the foundation is going to be our flagship initiative." She paused, her expression growing thoughtful. "I keep thinking about what Lily said earlier about her broken heart being worth something important. I think she understands something profound about how suffering can become service when it's guided by love." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the lights of the city twinkle below them like earthbound stars. Somewhere in those lights were families facing the same desperate choices Marcus had faced a year ago, parents watching their children grow sicker while fighting systems that treated desperation as a pre-existing condition. But now there was help available, a safety net woven from love and maintained by the memory of children who had taught the adults in their lives that miracles happen when ordinary people decide to be extraordinary for each other. "There's something I want to ask you," Victoria said suddenly, her voice carrying a nervousness Marcus had never heard before. "What's that?" "I've been thinking about making some changes to my will, and I wanted to discuss them with you first." She turned to face him directly. "I want to leave everything to Lily, the company, the foundation, all of it. But more than that, I want to formally adopt her as my granddaughter if you're comfortable with that." The request took Marcus's breath away. "Victoria, you don't need to." "I need to because she already is my granddaughter in every way that matters, and I want it to be official. I want her to know that she belongs to me just as much as I belong to her. And I want to ensure that if anything happens to me, she'll have the resources to continue the foundation's work and to build whatever life she dreams of." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as the full impact of her words sank in. She would love that. Sarah would love that. "Then you'll consider it?" "I don't need to consider it. The answer is yes, absolutely yes. Lily couldn't ask for a better grandmother, and I couldn't ask for a better partner in raising her." Victoria smiled, the expression transforming her face with joy and relief. "In that case, there's one more thing. I've been thinking about selling the penthouse and finding something more suitable for a family. Maybe a house in Westchester with a big yard, where Lily can run around, and we can plant a garden in Sarah's memory. A house with room for sleepovers when Emma and the other foundation kids come to visit," Marcus added, already imagining Lily's excitement at the prospect. "And room for a proper art studio where she can work on her drawings. I think she's going to be an artist someday. Someone who helps people see beauty in places they never thought to look for it." As they prepared to leave the terrace and return to the life they had built together, Marcus felt Sarah's presence one more time, not as a visiting spirit, but as a living part of the love that continued to shape their days. She was in Lily's laughter, in Victoria's fierce protectiveness, in the foundation that would carry her promise forward into futures they couldn't yet imagine. 2 years later, Marcus stood in the backyard of their house in Scarsdale, watching Lily race across the lawn with a kite shaped like an airplane her laughter carried on the spring wind. She was 11 now, tall for her age and radiating the kind of health that comes from a heart that has never known limitation. Her latest checkup had shown that her cardiac function remained perfect, and Dr. Elena Chen had officially declared her cured, not just treated, but completely restored to normal cardiac health. Victoria emerged from the house carrying a pitcher of lemonade and wearing a smile that had become her default expression since becoming a grandmother. "How's our pilot doing?" "She's gotten that kite higher than I've ever seen it go," Marcus replied, shading his eyes to track the red and silver diamond dancing against the blue sky. "That's because she understands something most people don't, that the trick to flying isn't avoiding the wind, it's learning to use it to lift you higher than you could go on your own." They settled into lawn chairs to watch Lily's aerial show, comfortable in the silence that comes from shared contentment. The garden they had planted in Sarah's memory was coming into full bloom around them. Sunflowers and roses, herbs and vegetables, everything chosen for its beauty and its ability to attract butterflies and hummingbirds. "Daddy, Grandma, look how high it's going," Lily called from across the yard, the kite now so high it looked like a real aircraft navigating the thermals above Westchester County. The Sarah and David Foundation received its 500th application this week. Victoria mentioned casually, though Marcus could hear the pride in her voice. 500 children who might not have had surgery otherwise. 500 families who won't have to face what we faced. Victoria paused, watching Lily adjust the kite string with the practiced skill of someone who had spent countless hours perfecting her technique. "Sometimes I think about the parallel universe where I never had a heart attack on that airplane, where we never met each other. In that universe, there are hundreds of children who don't get the chance Lily got. And in this universe, those children get to live because a woman learned 20 years ago that love doesn't end with death, it multiplies." Dr. James Chen's car pulled into their driveway, followed by a second car carrying Dr. Sarah Mitchell and her husband. They had all become regular fixtures at the Hale Sterling family gatherings, bound together by shared purpose and the kind of friendship that forms when people work together to save lives. Uncle James, Aunt Sarah, Lily called, using the titles she had assigned to all the adults who had played a role in saving her heart and building her new life. She came running across the lawn, the kite string still in her hand, trailing her airplane through the sky behind her. "How's our favorite pilot today?" James asked, sweeping Lily into a hug that lifted her feet off the ground. "I'm great. I got accepted into the summer art program at the Museum of Natural History, and Grandma Victoria says I can help interview families for the Foundation Scholarship Program." Dr. Sarah Mitchell knelt down to Lily's eye level. "I heard you've been visiting the pediatric cardiac unit at Mount Sinai, talking to kids before their surgeries. I like to tell them what it feels like afterward, when your heart is strong and you can do anything you want. Sometimes they're scared, but I show them David's necklace and tell them about how he watches over kids who need heart surgery, and then they feel braver." As the afternoon progressed into evening, their backyard filled with the easy conversation of people who had become family not through accident of birth, but through choice, shared values, and mutual commitment to caring for each other. Marcus grilled hamburgers while Victoria and Dr. Sarah discussed plans for expanding the Foundation's reach to include international cases. Dr. James and his wife played an elaborate game of tag with Lily that involved running in patterns that spelled out medical terms. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Lily's kite was still dancing overhead, a small miracle of engineering and determination that seemed to defy gravity through sheer force of will. "I have an announcement," Lily said suddenly, commanding the attention of all the adults with the authority of someone who had learned that her voice mattered and her ideas were worth hearing. "What's that, sweetheart?" Marcus asked. "I've decided what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a pediatric cardiac surgeon like Dr. Elena, so I can fix other kids' hearts the way she fixed mine. And I also want to be an artist, so I can paint pictures of hope for families while they're waiting for their kids to get better." The declaration was met with silence as the adults absorbed the beautiful ambition of a child who had transformed her own suffering into a desire to serve others. "I think," Victoria said, finally, her voice thick with emotion. That would make everyone who loves you very proud. Your mommy David, and all of us who get to watch you grow up. And I think Sarah knew all along that this was exactly who you were going to become, Marcus added, pulling Lily close for a hug that encompassed all his love and admiration for the remarkable person his daughter was becoming. As darkness fell and the stars emerged overhead, Lily's kite finally came down, its day of flight complete, but its purpose fulfilled. They gathered around the outdoor table Victoria had set with her good china, because she believed that family dinners should be celebrated with the same reverence as state occasions. "Before we eat," Lily said, standing up with the solemnity of someone about to perform a sacred ritual, "I want to say thank you." She closed her eyes and tilted her face toward the stars, her voice carrying clearly in the stillness of the evening. "Thank you to Mommy for sending us exactly the right help at exactly the right time. Thank you to David for sharing his courage and his grandma with us. Thank you to all the doctors and nurses who make broken hearts strong again. And thank you to everyone sitting at this table for showing me that families come in all different shapes, and the best ones are built from love instead of just from DNA." Marcus felt tears on his cheeks as he looked around the table at faces illuminated by candlelight and affection. Victoria's eyes shone with the satisfaction of someone whose life had finally found its true purpose. Dr. James and Dr. Sarah smiled with the quiet joy of people whose work saved lives every day. And Lily glowed with the radiant health of someone whose second chance at life had become a gift to everyone around her. "To Sarah and David," Victoria said, raising her glass in a toast, "whose love refuses to be contained by death and continues to save children through the hands and hearts of everyone they touched. To Sarah and David." The table chorused their voices, carrying gratitude across the years, to two souls whose brief earthly presence continued to ripple outward in ever-expanding circles of healing. As the evening wound toward midnight and their guests prepared to leave, Lily made one final announcement. "Next month is the anniversary of my surgery. I want to have a party, but not the regular kind. I want to invite all the families from the foundation whose kids got their hearts fixed this year. I want to show them that happy endings are real, and I want to ask them to help us think of ways to help even more kids." "That sounds like the perfect way to celebrate," Marcus agreed, marveling at his daughter's instinctive understanding that gratitude multiplies when it's shared. After their guests departed and the dishes were cleaned and put away, Marcus and Victoria sat on the back porch, watching Lily chase fireflies through the garden. She moved with the boundless energy of someone whose body had never known limits, whose heart pumped strong and steady with the rhythm of infinite possibility. "Do you think Sarah knows?" Victoria asked quietly. "Do you think she can see how her promise multiplied into all of this?" Marcus watched his daughter capture a firefly gently in her cupped hands, studying its glow with the wonder of someone who understood that the most beautiful things in life are often the most fragile and temporary. "I think she knows," he said finally, "and I think she's amazed by how much love can accomplish when it refuses to give up." Lily released the firefly and watched it rejoin its companions, dancing lights that turned their backyard into something magical and otherworldly. She looked up at the stars, where she claimed she could sometimes see her mother and David working together to arrange help for other families who needed miracles. "Daddy, Grandma, come look at this," she called, pointing toward the constellation Orion, which hung directly overhead like a celestial guardian, keeping watch over their small corner of the world. They joined her on the lawn, the three of them lying back on a blanket, to study the infinite scatter of stars overhead. Somewhere in that vastness were other families facing desperate choices, other children whose hearts needed healing, other strangers who were about to discover that angels sometimes wear business suits and carry medical degrees and show up exactly when hope seems impossible. "Make a wish," Lily whispered as a shooting star traced a brief arc across the darkness. Marcus closed his eyes and wished for continued health for Lily, for the Foundation's continued success, for the kind of future where no child would die from a treatable condition simply because their family couldn't afford the cure. Victoria wished for many more years of watching Lily grow up, for the wisdom to guide the Foundation toward maximum impact, for the continued presence of Sarah's love in all their daily choices. And Lily, whose wishes had a habit of coming true in ways no one expected, wished that every child in every hospital in every city in the world would have someone who loved them enough to fight for their life, and that every parent facing impossible choices would discover that angels are real and help arrives precisely when you most need it, usually wearing the face of a stranger who turns out to be exactly the family you never knew you were missing. The shooting star faded into memory, but the wishes it carried would continue to unfold across years and miles, creating ripples of love and healing that would touch lives not yet born, save hearts not yet broken, and prove again and again that miracles are not violations of natural law. They are expressions of love's refusal to accept defeat when applied with enough faith, courage, and the unwavering belief that every life is worth saving, and every child deserves the chance to discover who they were meant to become. As they finally went inside to sleep in the house built from love and furnished with gratitude, Lily paused at the window where Sarah's jewelry box still sat on the sill, David's airplane necklace glinting in the starlight. She touched the glass gently, as if caressing the faces of those who watched over them from beyond the veil of ordinary sight. "Thank you," she whispered to her mother and her angel brother, "for teaching everyone that love never really dies. It just finds new ways to save the people who need saving most." And somewhere in the mystery that connects all hearts across time and space and circumstance, Sarah and David smiled, their own love multiplied beyond measure through the earthly hands that had learned to carry it forward, creating an endless chain of salvation that would stretch across generations, saving child after child after child, proving that sometimes the strangers we rescue on airplanes at 37,000 feet turn out to be the very angels we've been praying for all along.